All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Holly Anderson, Deputy Clerk of the Utility Commission, here with Andrea McHugh, one of our hearing officers, and we are here to show you all about two of our newest introductions to our ePUC, our reports and rulemaking. I wanted to make sure that everyone has their phone on mute just to make it easier for everyone to hear. And there's an option on the GoToMeeting that you can send in questions through the chat if you have questions while we're going through everything. All the beginnings to get going. I'm going to hand it over to Andrea for a little bit. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, and the screen that you see, again, I will mention, just like yesterday's training, that we are using a screen that might look a little different from yours because we have what we call a development portal. So it looks a little different. This way we can show you things and actually add them to our system without actually adding all kinds of crazy stuff to our true system. So your screen will look a little bit different.
Okay, let's get started. Today we're going to talk about reports and rulemakings and how to initiate those in ePUC. I'm Andrea McHugh, as Holly said, and I'm a hearing officer and utilities analyst for the board. So we'll assume that folks have already figured out how to log into the system. If you haven't, there are some help videos on our main website, the ePUC, the PUC website, the Public Utility Commission website. So we'll move over here and start off with reports in the left-hand column. It's under one of our frequently used case forms. And this is a pretty simple form with just some basic information here, you'll see. So we'll start at the top and select type of industry. So this is EEU, electric, gas, telecom, water, sewer, and cable television. Are you filing on behalf of an organization? Typically, you're going to say yes to this. I can't really see an instance where an individual would be filing a report with the PUC.
But we have the option.
We have the option. So here we have the reporting organization. If you need to add your organization into the system, you click here to add an organization. And fill out the information as follows. Telephone. And then at the bottom, there's the CAPTCHA, which will have a simple math question to let the system know that you're a human visitor and not an alien, not a other type of visitor. And you'll see that this will say that your filing has been made. Now this is just the filing related to adding your organization into the system. So you need to go back to the other tab that you were working in and now look up the system that you were doing.
We would note here, too, that adding shouldn't be hugely necessary for many of you because utilities, we have pretty much all the reporting entities that would report with us should already be in ePUC. So you could just do a simple search by starting to type the name or using the magnifying glass and searching for your utility as well.
Okay. Now we've added the person. Oh, address type is required. So when you'll see a red box up here, you'll notice that there's an error that won't allow you to proceed. So we like to be sure to make an error at least once in one of our trainings to make sure that
Always intentional.
Always intentional. This was not an oversight at all. I'm being sarcastic. Anyway, so here we go.
You don't make mistakes. What?
Okay, so we'll go back here, and we'll add our official representative here. And as Holly said, in most cases, the utility itself will be updating and uploading the report.
And we've tried to, I think we have a lot of current official representatives as well. So again, best to do a search first before you try to add as well.
And if you needed to add a second organization, if this was a joint report that was being filed, you would just click here.
Or if there's multiple representatives as well.
Yeah. And then if you do click this and you don't fill this out and you try to go on to the next screen, it's going to give you an error message. So just make sure if you actually don't need this and you just made a mistake that you just delete it by hitting that minus button. Okay, now moving on to the meat of the actual filing is the report type. And we have a little help button here. And if you click on that, it should however, being a little slow, so let's just give it a second. I won't be so trigger happy with my mouse. Okay, it doesn't seem to be working. However, the message that actually pops up on there will tell you that the report types are organized by multi-industry report types up top first, and then cable, and then electric, and then gas, energy efficiency, and then telecommunications. Okay. There are no gas specific ones. Those would just fall under the multi-industry ones. And I'll show you where that information is on the PUC website that could help. Basically, we have this long list of reports, and in order to make it easier for folks to find what they were looking for, we just grouped them together. We couldn't add a more descriptive name in the information here, so what we did was we just added in, we just tried to reorder them.
And this way you can go in, when you're preparing to file your report, go into, Andrea will show you afterward.
Well, I'll show you, I'll work on it now this way, but go ahead, Sally.
And this way you could print this out and be prepared, because it'll be really important if you use the correct type of report. It will help us and other people find your reports in there as well.
Okay, so ePUC information on the PUC website, and then under ePUC help, and then we have here list of ePUC report types. And there's a PDF file that shows these are this is the same list that you'll see in that drop-down menu. However, it doesn't have the multi-industry breakout here because the system doesn't allow us to add this subcategory type here. So if you just print this out and keep it next to you or keep it up on your screen, it'll help you to be able to find what you're looking for in terms of, and so this will be very helpful. And we actually have just a little summary here that's just not popping up right now that we'll have to look into for the help that just says that it's organized in that order, multi-industry, cable, etc. One thing to notice is that many of our electric utilities and other utilities file annual reports with the Department of Public Service, and they're required to do so. And the Department of Public Service will receive those through their portal, and that information gets pushed to us. So you don't need to file that report with the Commission separately, so you won't see that as an option on here. So you just file it with the department, and then it will go to the Commission separately. Now, if you have any, if you decide to file it in paper with the department or emailed, those still need to be filed directly with the Commission, either in paper or via ePUC. But we'll say that the best option is to file it on ePUC or on the department's portal, and then that information will get pushed to ePUC. And confidential information, if you have confidential information in your reports, those will need to be filed in paper, and only the redacted version would be filed with the department or with the Commission. And we have a question, I see. Sorry, I missed it. Oh, sure. So how do we get into the reports to begin with? Let me open up a new section here. So I'm just going to leave the other screen that I had open, and it's under frequently used case forms over here, and you just click report. So you'll see that this one has been added just this week. You wouldn't have seen these before. You wouldn't have seen report before. Okay. So the most frequently used ones, you'll see there'll be a lot of, there are several reports under here that are very specific to individual utilities. However, there are some that are pretty open across the board, and like service quality reports. Many of our utilities have to file those, and the DEU reports are all grouped together down here. You'll see those. And now, basically, all you do is select which type of report it is, the period, start and end date, and this is only if it's applicable. If you do end up needing to select other, which we don't expect there to be too many others because we tried to anticipate every type of report that there would be, but if you select other, then we do ask that you include in this description section what the report is referring to. So we'll just go back and click here and say that this report is for the fiscal year that began on October 1st. We'll have to go back to October 1st, 2016, and ended on, oh, I'm in the wrong one. There we go. And into, oops.
Quick with the click.
Quick with the click. And for this description, I'll just say fiscal year 17. Now, some cases or orders that are issued in a case require that the entity that is the subject of the case needs to file a report by a specific date, and if there was an extension that was requested, we ask that you fill this in so that it is clear which case this report is associated with. And then document title. And then upload the file. And if you have any other supporting documentation, you need to decide whether it's, we typically don't require a cover letter. However, if there's some information that you need to explain, substantive to the report, to the commission, you would attach a cover letter.
But it's not necessary to have a enclosed please find type of cover letter.
We just had a question, what file types are accepted? And yeah, all the ones that Lori just mentioned, PDF, Excel, and Word are all accepted. But that's a good segue just to remind folks that on the main PUC site, under this little section about ePUC, we have this procedures document here. And this goes through the different file types and what to expect, and has a bunch of definitions to help folks along with the ePUC. This is kind of serving as a information source to help people along with what is meant by the different definitions, and then also kind of giving some background here about how to step through the processes.
It's a good reference to really go through. Might help you out faster than waiting to call us or send an email. A lot of things are answered through the procedures.
Yeah, it's a 14-page document, but there are different sections. So just try to take a look at the main topics and see where you might find what's most interesting to what you have your question on. Okay, so the other things here would be if you had a motion that would accompany the report, you would enter that in and designate the file as such. And the motion one will give you a extra thing to describe what that motion is referring to. And then there's an other document filed with the commission. So if you had, an Excel file that was accompanying the report, or, some other corollary report that was of interest that was associated with this one, you would
can file each of them separately, so it's clear what you have attached.
Yeah. So we don't need that, so I'm just going to pop that out there. Now, if you did have some confidential information, the actual confidential document would be filed in paper. However, you would need to have a motion that was indicating that you would were requesting confidential treatment. So this would be the place where you would upload that motion and put that in here. You could put the public version up here, where that would be your redacted version. However, the confidential versions we're not accepting information right now in ePUC electronically. We want people to get familiar with the system and make sure that there's a level of comfort before we're putting confidential information into the system. So for now, we're going to stick with paper for confidential.
Correct. They'll send it like you had traditionally for confidential filing.
And that includes the annual reports that I had mentioned earlier would be going to the Department of Public Service. So, you would file a redacted version electronically and the full version in paper. In that, the confidential part in paper should also be provided to the commission separately. And then there's the section here for the protective agreement that would be associated with the request for confidentiality And then down here, if there are any other motions related, or sorry, public and confidential versions not related to the motions above. And then you have your CAPTCHA down here. So I'm just going to go back here and get rid of those guys. And put my math. Well, did I actually? Yeah.
We'll find out.
And we'll find out, see if we have any errors. Okay. And then you'll see that there is a case number associated with it.
These numbers will be a little different. We won't have the suffix at the end, like traditional when you file petitions or other things like that. These will have the 17A, so they'll look a little different because it's just a reporting. It's not anything that will be issued, traditionally issued, anything more from the commission on it. So your numbers will look a little different.
And this, if you wanted to review the screen where it would show this, you just go to View Case. And then you'll see that it was the Howe Law Firm, annual report to shareholders. It shows the time period for which the report refers to, the number, and some other information here, electric and such. And then the actual report would be under all other documents. And if you click on this view document, you'll see it. Yes. And if there was a, yes, so let's go back to related to reports. So that shows folks how to actually enter in a report. And basically, you know, this is the step, as Holly said, you know, there's no further action required typically unless the commission comes back to the filer and has questions. So I'd like to just show folks the way that you can search for reports that have previously been filed. Now, just keep in mind that the commission does not intend to upload old reports into the system from previous years or, you know, old reports. So the report that you do when you do a search, it'll just be the ones that have been entered into ePUC in the last, for this, either by the department because it was a annual report that was from last year that was pushed to us, or if it's being filed now.
Filed from here on out.
So this search case and document search, I just got to that over here by list of searches.
This is a really good resource for anything you want to do on our ePUC site because you can have many, many great searches set up.
So they're divided by documents and cases, and so this report is considered to be a case just for the purposes of the system. So you see on the bottom here, there's report cases, fine reports filed as standalone cases, not as compliance filings in another case, because compliance filings would be associated with the actual case. And then it gives you several options. You don't need to fill out every one of these fields in order to do a search.
I think you can just hit search too, and it will just show you any reports that it has in there.
Okay.
So if you don't have any actual idea of what you're truly looking for.
Or you could search by industry.
Right.
Let's try that, industry.
You can put as much or as little information as you know or think you know into these searches.
So here you'll see these are the annual reports to the DPS. And this is where they would be.
Yeah, so far in this development, we have ones that were pushed from.
Yes, exactly. And you could reorder them. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions. No questions. When will a report be given a case number? So that's after you hit submit.
Right, at the end where we showed you, after you do your CAPTCHA, and then that will pop up your case number like a traditional petition or anything. You'll get that 17A number.
And you'll go, if you wanted to go back and check those, you could go to My Cases up here, and you'll see this is the one we just entered.
Under My Cases, it will show anything that you initiated through ePUC. That will show up on your My Cases. Or if you're an agency, they'll show up under your My Agency Cases for everyone to see. So.
Okay, I think that covers reports.
And really the only other, reiterate, really look at the report types when you're getting ready to file your report, because I think it's broken down really nicely for each industry for this kind of things that they would.
And I'll just show folks again where that is. That's under ePUC information. So I'm back on the PUC website. And ePUC help. And full flow. And then list of ePUC report types. And here it is. Okay.
And if you go back to for those of you who do other types of filing as well through ePUC, above that we've also added our list of document types that can be filed with the Commission, just so you can be aware that if you do other kinds of filing, it's the list on there when you're attempting to put in the document and find the right type is very long on your screen. This is another resource we've put on so you can print that out and have it, and then you can be proactive and be prepared when you're going to do any kind of filing on PUC to know what types you can file. So just put that out there, share it with your friends.
Okay, so rulemaking is, if we go back to home on the PUC website, ePUC, sorry, it's under here, other case forms. So we've tried to organize it so that the frequently used ones are up here, and then other ones that aren't as used are down here. Rulemaking is right here on the bottom. And these cases include all the petitions asking the Commission to open a rulemaking or to change a rule and modify a rule, and it also includes rulemakings if they're opened by the Commission directly. So you have the type of industry that's the subject of the rule. If you're filing on behalf of an organization, yes or no.
And every time you say yes to that kind of a question, you will have to put in the organization, check to see if it exists, and the representative. So
yeah. And petitioner information here, we have if the person that's initiating it is an individual, you would type in the person's name here.
Or add it with the.
Or add it with here, yeah.
And it's very important too that if you are, representing yourself in this, and that you say yes or no to the self-represented one, so that way it will either let you add an attorney for yourself or leave it clear that it's your pro se.
Okay, and if you are requesting an emergency rule, there are certain statutory requirements, and one of the requirements is to state when you would like to see the emergency rule in place by, and there are all sorts of requirements on what that means to, to have an emergency rule. There are some specific information that's required, and it's only in certain circumstances. If you were seeking that, then you would fill this out and state the date. And then down here, is this filing proposing a new rule or an amendment to an existing rule? If you select amendment, you need to also select which rule you're referring to. If we see down here, if it was related to thinking of the energy efficiency charge, and it would be and so this is just a simple subject matter description of the proposed rule or amendment. If you click New Rule, there's no need to associate the filing with an existing rule. And then here, we just need a list of the groups or organizations that you recommend receive notice of the proposed rule. And this is just a simple list separated by commas in order to let the Commission know who you think might be affected by the changes to the rule or by the new rule. And then the documents here. Just upload your document. This is the petition, so it would be describing the need for the change and what that means. And then we have, do you want to talk about the order of notice?
The proposed order of notice, this would be what you would propose that we send out to all the entities that should be getting notice of this proposed rulemaking, and then that is used by us to
share that information.
Yeah. Emanate to all the proper parties.
Now, if we go back and we click amendment over here, you'll see that there's some extra information that shows here that shows a clean version and a red line version, so that the clean version incorporates the revisions that you're proposing without seeing where those revisions are immediately. And the red line version would just highlight those changes. So you're asked to include that. Now, sometimes you wouldn't actually be proposing specific language changes, but it would be a more broad request to review the rule. And so you wouldn't, it's not required that you file these documents with the clean version or red line version.
Because again, anything with a red star, traditionally you have to include it.
Yeah.
And if you don't see the stars, then it's optional.
And we'll see the star here and the star here, yeah. And then we have other supporting documents. If there's any other information that you need to attach, such as a cover letter, I think that the petition would probably be covering that information, so the cover letter wouldn't, it's not required, you'll see.
Because again, we don't really need enclosed I have filed.
Yeah. And so, and then if there were any motions associated with that, with this request or this petition and other documents, so you have those options there. And then there's the same options here regarding the confidential that we looked at when we're filing the report types about adding that information. And again, we would ask that only the redacted versions are filed in here, and any confidential information is provided via paper.
And you will note too that down at the bottom, this is on many of the things that we actually have filed through here, that you don't have to file a paper notice of appearance as well.
Or a separate document.
Or a separate document, because this is, you actually will read everything that's on here, you'll see that this, by proceeding, you're actually putting in your notice. So that saves you a little time as well. And also note that as with anything right now filed through ePUC, we do ask that one paper copy is filed with the commission as well. So just remember that.
And that would be documented in the procedures.
Again, yeah.
So do we have any other questions? Let's see. Okay.
Pretty thorough on this one.
Okay. I think we
we
got a question. When an AMO files their annual report, an ePUC will a copy be sent to the cable operator? And that answer is no, it won't be. That needs to be done separately outside of the system. The only way that you would know that something would be shared, we would have a question on there that would indicate that it would be shared with someone else. So just assume that if it's not a question in the system, then you need to still file your any requirements with other agencies or entities that need to receive your documents. It will be outside the system. Okay.
Go another minute just in case you think of something. And again, anytime you need assistance with any of this, have any questions, please call our office, email the admin email, which is puc@epucadmin@vermont.gov.
It's actually puc.epucadmin. I think you said at.
Oh. At dot whatever.
And it's just important to remember to use that email address rather than the clerk's email address when you're asking specific questions about ePUC. It's a more direct route to receive a response. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. We appreciate your attendance.
And this, again, is recorded and will be put up on our website with the other videos and training, so you can
it's on that help section.
Back and check it out anytime you want.
Okay. Thanks everyone for coming. Take care.